In Christian belief, if someone hasn't been exposed to Christianity and thus doesn't believe in God, they aren't condemned to hell. Does this imply that spreading Christianity might potentially expose more people to the risk of damnation? No, in Christianity, if people do not have a relationship with Jesus, they will not be let into heaven. So remote villages in Africa or South America who do not have any knowledge of Christianity will go to hell according to the teaching of the Bible. So it is up to missionaries to reach them, otherwise they will be damned according to Christianity. In Christian belief, if someone hasn't been exposed to Christianity and thus doesn't believe in God, they aren't condemned to hell. This is not true source. Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's not quite accurate. According to the Bible, non-believers go to hell. That's it. Whether they had ever even heard of the Christian God or not, doesn't matter. This doesn't sit right with some people. Why should people be punished for not accepting God when they went their whole life never having even heard of Him? So some people proposed that, since it really isn't their fault or within their control, there's no way they could be held accountable, and so you can only be punished for actively rejecting God. That, of course, introduces the other problem, the one you're asking about. I've had this thought, similar to abortions, babies who aren't born go to the kingdom of God? Sounds like those babies get to skip out on a lot of grief. You just lost the game of heaven. This is heavily dependent on sect, and even in some that believe this, just because someone doesn't go to hell doesn't mean they get a free pass to heaven either. Hell is a human concept. When Jesus went to hell, it was a crappy place. During the first millennia, hell was a cold place. At some point during the second millennia, someone at the Vatican smoked crack and decided hell was a hot place. Confutates maledictis. Find a Bible. Read Ephesians 2:8-9, see if that answers your question. If not, visit a local Protestant church, like a Baptist church or a Reformed church, and ask the minister this question. It's a good question and worthy of consideration. Maybe God is calling you to a higher understanding of something. BTW competent pastors, ministers spend a lot of time and energy thinking about things like this and would welcome an opportunity to discuss this with you. One of the most interesting men in my life is my pastor, and we discuss everything from Bible topics to human relations to politics to history. It makes my life more interesting. So many of our relationships are shallow and superficial. So it's fun to hear somebody smarter than me challenging me and informing me about things of interest. No. Jesus' final commandment, the Great Commission in Matthew 28:18-20, tells us to go out into the world, share the gospel, baptize along the way, and teach them to observe what Jesus commanded of us. We don't know what will happen if someone who never been exposed to Christianity dies. We say God is sovereign and will judge us in the end, so a perfect God being a perfect judge means the ultimate fairness in the end. Whatever happens will be the right call. Technically yes, but I assume those people that haven't heard about Jesus don't go to heaven, so by Christian lore, while proselytizing will increase the number of people in hell, it will also increase the number of people in heaven. You get what you give. Want to believe in heaven, then live a good life and get there. Choose not to believe, then get the nothing you believe. This varies among Christians. I grew up in the church and was taught that people who didn't know about God were all going to hell. If we didn't witness to people and get them to accept Christ, their blood was on our hands. I've never been to a church that taught that people who didn't accept Christ would go to heaven. I'm not a Christian anymore. This is the fun of Christianity. The more you pay attention to its rules, the more you realize how absolutely batshit bullshit it is. I've seen tons of religious apologetics, and here are the answers to this I've seen. 1. It's not true that only people who have been exposed to Christianity are judged for not believing. All people are damned if they aren't Christian, even if they've never heard of Christianity. 1. Yes, it's true that people won't be damned if they haven't heard of Christianity, but God tells us to spread the word, so we do it without question. Both are disgusting beliefs. The more rational religious people simply don't believe in such an evil thing as the existence of hell if a supposedly loving God exists. If you are that worried about it, Jesus was a Jew, and the old-fashioned Jewish faith doesn't really have a hell. That's a modern Christian construct. You kinda just go to God and confess, see the full ramifications of your actions, then eventually pass on to whatever is beyond that. So your statement is kinda out there, but no. In this faith system, everyone goes to God. Some just go there without ever reading the instruction manual for a living and having no idea how they got there or what's going on. Conclusion is the same. People don't go to hell when they die. That was made up by the Catholics to scare people. Yes, but don't worry, it's not true. No one is condemned to hell. According to the Bible, if you believe in Jesus, you will live forever. Everyone else just goes back to dust. Depending on your flavor of Christianity, judgment is usually on a very personal basis. In this case, not really, because even someone who has been taught about Christ, but doesn't believe in him, but is generally a good person, is still going to heaven. In these flavors, the idea of spreading Christianity is more about helping people develop a relationship with God and create their version of the best earth possible. I know there are some other flavors that are more tight on the who gets into heaven rules, but honestly, I don't know how they convince anyone that a loving God came up with those. Depends on which group you ask. There are some evangelicals who believe that to be saved you have to accept the gospel, and accept Jesus as one's savior. At least the particular gospel they claim was preached by this illiterate Jew in Palestine, but wasn't written until decades after his death. What happens otherwise depends on whom you ask. Some believe that you go to purgatory or limbo or whatever, where you work off the guilt until the second coming. Or you just go to hell and are tortured for the rest of the long weekend for the amusement and gratification of the shiny VIP area.